Hello and welcome to Sunday Run Day, the podcast. The first thing I'd like to do is give a big congratulations to Stuart King, who went up to Noosa to take on that 515 kilometre challenge over 3 days, finishing on day 3 with that double marathon. Just wanted to say congratulations, what an incredible achievement, an incredible event to be a part of. Now, earlier in the week, I did put an Instagram post on about some of the events that were happening around the world over this weekend that interest me, but also interest me because we actually knew a few people carrying out in some of those events. Now, I will mention the first event actually has taken place as I record this podcast, and that was the Wadi Rum Full Moon Marathon. Now, the reason I knew quite a few people running there is because when me and Clara did go to Jordan to carry out the Petra Desert Marathon and the half marathon for ourselves, we met a lot of local people and we got to hear a lot about their running journey and their story, and also been able to follow them on social media as they continue on their journey. And I knew quite a few of the guys were actually down there in Wadi Rum carrying out the Full Moon Marathon. So a big congratulations to all of them that competed there. So many of them that went across there. It's a really great event in Jordan. And one day me and Clara hope to be able to go over to Jordan and compete in that event as well alongside those guys. So a big congratulations there. Now also we had the Great Wall Marathon. Just as I mentioned, I met some people in Petra for the desert marathon there. It was actually held by Albatross Adventures. Now, they also do the Great Wall Marathon. So that was, as I speak, it was yesterday for us. But it was over there in China, in Beijing. And we actually knew someone that was taking part in there. So a big congratulations to Balas for going over to the Great Wall China Marathon. What an incredible achievement. What an amazing marathon, running on one of the wonders of the world. And then last but not least, I have to say congratulations to Lee, who is the owner of Sweatmasters. He went up to the Blue Mountains to compete in the trail run, the UTA 50, so a 50 kilometer trail run, and a massive congratulations to him for completing in that and getting through what looks like an incredible event. Beautiful scenery around the Blue Mountains there. So congratulations to everyone that's taken part in all of the events already this weekend, but also I want to give a big shout out and best of luck to everyone taking part in the other 2 events that I did mention on Instagram. We have the Great Ocean Road Marathon, and I know some of the gym members are going down there, so a big shout out to the Sweaty crew. I really hope you enjoy it and have a lot of fun on the Great Ocean Road. And then also I put on there the Hackney Half Marathon. Now again, as I say, we met loads of people when we were in Petra, and one of them was also Haroon, who lives in London, and give a big shout out to him and best of luck in the Hackney Half Marathon taking place this weekend. So as I mentioned last week, just at the end of the episode, as I was talking a lot during the episode about that personal best, I'm actually heading up to Noosa next weekend to compete in my first marathon of the season. And as I did say, trying to get my personal best and trying to get what I say is one of my goals that I've been looking forward to as I run marathons. Now, my goal is to run under that 3 hours. I did mention at the end of the last episode that I will talk a little bit about my training, a little bit about a few things of going and how I feel going into this event. But what I wanted to touch on at the start here was talking about that goal. Now, it's a goal that I've set for myself. I set myself a goal a few years ago that I'd love to run a marathon under 3 hours. And I think as my journey has progressed and my marathon running has progressed, my goal has always changed. So I started off when I didn't run marathons and I was running in shorter events, 5K, 10K events. I had different goals. I had timed goals on the 10K event, or as I say, trying to progress my running. And then when I did have the marathon, my goal was to run under a certain time, but also to complete the marathon. And then as I've progressed in my journey and as my running has improved and I've learned so much on the way, I've obviously changed my goal. And my goal was to qualify for Boston. But also at the same time, I had that goal in the back of my mind. I'd love to run a marathon under 3 hours. So that's my goal, and I'm really hopeful that I get to achieve that goal next weekend. But if not, I'm okay with it because I know it's a goal I've set on myself that I know I will achieve at some stage. And whether it's next weekend, whether it's the marathon after, or even next year, I don't know when it'll be. I hope there will be next weekend, but it's just a goal that I've set for myself. And I wanted to just touch on that a little bit and talk about the goal because I really hope that we all have a goal when it comes to running. And that goal could be anything. A goal could be to run a certain distance, to run under a certain time, or even just a goal to run a certain amount of kilometers in a week, in a month, whatever it might be. But what I want from us is to always have a goal that we want to achieve, that no one else can tell us that we can't achieve that, because we know that we will achieve that goal. And set a goal that you want to do, something, whatever it could be. It could be to run a marathon. It could be to run a half marathon. It could be to run a 10K under 40 minutes. It could be to run a marathon under 3 hours like myself. Set yourself that goal and tell yourself that you will make that and you will hit that goal. And it's such a great thing to have. For me, as I progress in my running journey, it's always good to have that goal, knowing that I'm going to do it. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it and stick to that goal and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel, because even though I might not make it on the next run or the run after, I know I will. And it's also, like I mentioned last week about that personal best, it's okay when we don't run as well. It could be many things, but we'll learn from it. We'll learn from that run, and maybe it's a change that we have to make, or maybe just in general, something didn't feel quite right, but I still pushed through and persevered and got through the end of my run. But I really want us to have that goal that we want to achieve. And I'm also interested to hear from you guys what that goal might be. So please drop a comment on Instagram, drop a comment on YouTube, or even send me a message. It'd be great to hear from you guys what sort of goal you have and what's your next biggest goal and what you've achieved already, but also what you're progressing on to want to hit that goal. So as I talk a little bit about the goal, I wanted to share a little bit of a story of one of my really close friends back in the UK. Now, I met Josh when I was living in the UK, and we've grown a really good relationship together because that friendship was built on the love of sports. The friendship was built on, running, was built on boxing at the time. It was stuff that we were both interested in, and we managed to build our friendship on really good solid ground of being interested in many of the same things. Now, I want to share a bit of Josh's story around when he carried out the London Marathon in 2013. But I want to go back to a few questions I asked him as we discussed about his running journey along the way. So I asked him about when he first started getting into running and what was the reason he really wanted to run, and also the reason why he wanted to compete in the London Marathon. So now Josh mentioned to me that he actually started running at an early age when he was at school. He had to be a pretty good athlete. And one thing I say about Josh, he's a pretty good all-round athlete, and he was a very good 1500 meter runner. He managed to hold a couple records at school as he progressed in the years and actually be a really fast runner at his school and get to compete against, his fellow colleagues and just getting those records. 1500 meter records is impressive. But Josh also got into swimming and was able to compete at a really high level in swimming in the younger ages when he was at school. So Josh was kind of multi-talented and really very good at different aspects of sports and different disciplines. But then he wanted to run the London Marathon as he got a bit older, and he wanted to run it for a charity that was really close to his heart as well. So he was training really well, and he's really getting into running. Now I asked him how the training for London Marathon was, how do you feel? Because at the time when I ran my first marathon, I leaned on Josh quite a bit because I knew he already carried out a marathon. And I kind of asked him a lot of questions about how he felt during the marathon, what he'd recommend for me as I was leading up to my first marathon. And I remember him telling me that the week before he ran London Marathon, he decided that I should run further than the marathon. Because if I can run further than the marathon, then I'll be okay when the marathon comes around. So the week before, Josh went out on a run and he'd done 46 kilometers. Because he thought, well, if I can do 46 kilometers, I'll be okay to do 42. Now, I wouldn't advise that on many people to do. And I think Josh, now if you talk to many people, would also say, I wouldn't advise to go that far the week before the marathon. But it was kind of the mindset he had. He thought, if I could run further than the marathon, I'll be okay when it comes to the marathon. Now, going back when I talk about the goal, Josh had a goal as well, that he wanted to run that marathon under 3 hours. So very similar to where I'm at right now, but this was going back, 12 years ago that Josh had this goal to run the London Marathon under 3 hours. So during the marathon, he was running really well to start with. And he mentioned that at the halfway point, he was well within his target and within his goal. He thought, if I can continue on this, even if I slow down a little bit, I'll be able to achieve my goal and not only complete London Marathon, my first ever marathon, but do it under 3 hours as well. Now, unfortunately for Josh, with about 7 kilometers to go, he actually tore his hamstring. At the time, he didn't realize he tore his hamstring, but he realized the pain that he was under. He knew something wasn't quite right. So with 7 kilometers to go, he had a torn hamstring. Now, he still tried to push himself to get to that finish line. And I was asking him as well, like I asked many people, what is a funny story that you have about running? Now, Josh actually told me this was the funny story. I'm not so sure a torn hamstring is a very funny story, but for Josh, this was part of his funny story. And he mentioned to me the reason he thought it was funny is because as he was trying to push through those last 7 kilometers and really struggling to get any rhythm whatsoever, but all he kept thinking about was, if I can do 1 step, I can do 2 steps, and so on. But he did fall over a couple of times. Just the pain was so intense that he couldn't actually put that extra step. But when he fell over, some of the officials would come up to him and ask if he was okay. And he just kept saying, I'm fine, I just tripped. Or, no, I'm fine, don't worry about me, I'll be okay. Because he was so worried that they wouldn't let him finish. And that was his main goal. He just wanted to finish. He knew that he wasn't going to make the goal that he set out. But then it's kind of the main goal was really to finish. The secondary goal was, hopefully I could run under 3 hours. But the main goal was to finish. Now, when Josh says it's a funny story, I kind of see it as more of a motivational story, because with 7 kilometers to go, there he is, torn hamstring and just trying to push through. And just that mindset of, if I can do 1, I can do 2. And he did. He managed to just keep going and keep pushing, and he got to the finish line. And he managed to finish the 2013 London Marathon. And I, for one, was super proud of him at that time. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to go down to London and support him, but I know he had quite a few of his family members there, and it was great for them to support him in that moment of completing his first marathon and completing it. So, incredible. So then I asked Josh, what kind of keeps you running? What kind of keeps you going? And why do you still run? Now, unfortunately for Josh, he wasn't able to compete in any marathons after that. He hasn't gone back. He wanted to go back the year after to complete in London Marathon, but unfortunately he was still injured and he couldn't recover in time to be able to actually compete in the London Marathon the year after. And Josh, unfortunately, he was actually diagnosed with CIDP. Now, CIDP is a autoimmune disorder, and it's a neurological disorder, and it's kind of like progressive weakness. Now, I won't talk too much about it, but Josh did mention to me that he was happy for me to share that on the podcast, of just saying that he was actually diagnosed with that, which then changed his running journey and changed his story in life in general. He's had to go and get treatments and had to try and even relearn how to walk again. And it was really scary at the time when he told me this. And for me, being such a close friend, it was very worrying to hear Josh being in this situation and being diagnosed with this. But one thing I'll say about Josh is he is an absolute fighter. From the day I met him and even to today, he will just fight for everything, and he does not know any quit. There is no quit in this guy, and he was found a way to persevere and push forward and come out of it even stronger. He has to get treatment all the time, but every time I talk to him, he is just getting stronger and stronger, and his life in general he's just flourishing, and it's great to hear. So much so that he's trying to get back into running. Now, he said to me he doesn't know if he'd ever run a marathon again. I, for one, hope he does. I, for one, really hope that Josh can get back there to be able to run a marathon and things can go well for him and he can put himself in that situation with everything going on. And I'd love to be there alongside him to run that marathon with him. It would be such an amazing feeling for me, knowing that he was the first person I ever knew that ran a marathon. And I leaned on him for support when I ran my first marathon. And I'd love to be there to be able to support him to run a marathon. So I have mentioned that to him before. And I would really love it one day that he does decide to do a marathon anywhere in the world. And I'd love to be there to support him along the way and just enjoy running alongside him again. I used to run alongside him when we were back in the UK, and it'd be great to actually run alongside him again. So who knows? If Josh wants to do it, I'll certainly be there to support him along the way. Now, as we talked a lot about what continues, why you continue to run and what kind of pushes you to run, Josh mentioned something to me that I thought was really amazing when we were talking about it, and I asked him this question, but his answer was, it really did blow my mind, because I was like, it's exactly how I think running is. And he said to me that when he goes for a run, what he loves the most is the freedom of taking yourself out of one world and going into another. And I really thought about that, and I was like, spot on. He has got it down to a T, exactly what I think running is about. When you go out there running, you do go out of this world. You move into another world completely. So you have everything that's going on in your mind throughout the day, whether it's work, whether it's home, whatever is going through your mind. But as soon as you go out there on the run, you kind of go into this other world, an other kind of dimension, so to speak, that even though you might think about the things that have happened during the day, if you're running at night, or if you're running in the morning, you're thinking about things that are coming up in the day, you kind of sometimes may focus on them a bit more, and you give yourself that more attention to that. Or it could be the fact that you actually forget about everything that's happening, and you just focus on the run. You focus on how you feel, you focus on how you're doing, you focus on your breathing, you focus on listening to your music, your podcast, whatever you're listening to or whatever you're running to, you focus on that. And you do kind of remove yourself from the world that you're in. And I thought it was really cool. I thought, yeah, when Josh told me that, I was like, yeah, that's something that I really do think about running as well, that we are kind of taking ourselves out of one world and moving into another, and then we get to focus for however long it is, whether it's 5 minutes, 5 hours, whatever it is, you are focusing on something totally different, and I do find that amazing. And then the last question I asked Josh, I asked him, what advice would you give other runners, or advice you give to new runners or people that have been running for a long time? And his advice was very clear. He said, stretch, stretch, stretch. He repeated it multiple times to me, and I kind of laughed because as we were talking and having a discussion about it, he used to be the same runner I was. Put on your running shoes and go out for a run. I always used to think that the warm-up was the run. Was the first K, 2Ks, if I was doing maybe a 10K run, I'd warm up to start with, and then I'd get into my stride. But as we've progressed and we've got old and we've learned so much about running, stretching and warming up is vitally important. And that was Josh's advice. Make sure you stretch, make sure you warm up, because it's the most important part of your run. You start off on your run and your muscles are active, you're ready to go, rather than just putting your shoes on and going out there. So I've certainly changed as I've progressed. I remember when I'd done my first marathon, it was very much like that. I'd wake up in the morning for my long runs on a Sunday, I'd have no breakfast, I wouldn't stretch, I'd have my shoes, and I'd just go for the run. Whatever the distance is, I'm just running. And I've learned so much now that that's also not a good thing. As much as I love it, as much as I love to be able to just put my shoes on and go for a run, as I get older, as I'm trying to improve as well, I have to stretch. I have to warm up properly. And that was Josh's advice. But he also touched on another bit of advice, which I thought was really key as well for myself, is to make sure you get the right running shoes for you. Now, there is so many running shoes out there, incredible running shoes, I must admit. You name the brand, they've got some awesome running shoes. But it's about finding the ones that are right for you. It could be more supportive. It could be the carbon fiber shoes that make you run a little bit faster. It could be the fact you just love this brand and you've had that brand for your whole life. That's the shoe for you. And it is important. It really is important to find that right shoe for you. And as I kind of talk a little bit about my training, towards the end of the podcast, I'll come back and talk about finding the right shoe for you and the reasons why I really did at that moment when Josh told me, it did really resonate with me because I was like, yeah, it's how I am at this moment. But yeah, for Josh's running journey, it has been a really great journey of sort of when he was at school being that 1500 meter runner and very fast, very quick 1500 meter to progressing to run that marathon. And then unfortunately with other things that have happened, he hasn't got back to running a marathon, but he's still out there running and he's still out there enjoying his other training and other aspects, but he's starting to now pick up his running a bit more, and hopefully one day he'll get to go back and run a marathon. As I said, I'd be there to support him along the way. Now for me, like I mentioned, next weekend, I'm heading up to Noosa to compete in my first marathon of the season. Now, I'm really excited. I've put a lot of training into it, and I have that goal of running under 3 hours. And I hope I can. I've not run in Noosa before, so it is a new course for me. But being a multi-lap course as well, I kind of think it has its advantages and disadvantages. It has the advantage of knowing the course. After you've done one lap, you know exactly what you're doing for another 3. But also that can be a disadvantage because you come back on the second lap or the third and you're just like, one more or two more. So it can be a bit of an advantage on the course, but also a disadvantage. But for me, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the challenge and hopefully get that sub 3, but also knowing that if I don't, I'm okay. I'm going there and I'm enjoying it. I'm lucky Clara's coming along with me. She's going to compete in the half marathon as I compete in the marathon, but I'm looking forward to it. It should be a really good event. Now, as for my training, I won't go too much into the training because, like I've mentioned on this podcast, I'm not here to tell you how to train for a marathon or what training you should be doing or what stretches you should be doing. It's more about what works for you. And there's so many things out there on social media and on the internet of what sort of stretching you can do, what marathon training plans there are, 10K training plans, half marathon training plans. It's all out there. You don't need me to tell you how to do that. You guys will figure out of what you want to do and what works for you. And that's the most important thing. And that's what I'll say. What works for you? The training that I do works for me and I enjoy it. And that's the main thing. We've got to enjoy it. We've got to go out there and enjoy our runs. It can be difficult when we're training for these longer distances. Sometimes when you wake up on a Sunday, you might not be quite feeling that run that you know is a long run, but you've got to enjoy the process. And I certainly have enjoyed the process of my training. I've had some really great long runs. I've had some not so great runs, but never a bad run as mentioned. So yeah, training has been good and I feel I'm in a good position. The only thing I've had in my training is I actually encountered a bit of knee pain. Now, I've never encountered any knee pain during my running journey, and it's the first time I've kind of come across that pain. Now, I've been lucky enough to go to a physio, and I go to the physio even before I had knee pain, because I think going to the physio for me has been really good. It's been great for Clara, and I jumped on board of it because I've been able to find out a bit more about my strength and things I need to work on to hopefully help me achieve the goals I set out for. So the physio's been really good, and we've been talking a lot about this sort of knee pain that I've been having. Now, I'll be honest, the knee pain's not enough to stop me from running, but it's certainly a discomfort that it's something I wanted to get looked at and try and figure out. Now, we couldn't really figure out what was causing the knee pain, but what we actually have over time, had that discussion, we've done some exercises, done some training, try and really enhance the muscles around my knee to kind of give me that bit more strength. But I've realised in the last couple of weeks what I think has caused my knee pain. And as Josh mentioned, finding the right trainers for yourself, I think it was the new trainers. I obviously went out and bought some new trainers for the marathons that I have coming up this year, and I decided to go with the Nike Alphafly 3s. Now, the reason I went with them is Clara actually had the Nike Alphafly 3s. She tried them on, and she was telling me that they were really good. She thought they were great trainers. They were lightweight, and obviously if you go on the internet as well, you'll read so much stuff about the Alphafly 3s. People have broken records in these, and also there's some amazing reviews on there. So I thought I'd give them a go. Now, the first few weeks of wearing them, I felt pretty good and thought, yeah, they are a good trainer. There's some differences to them from what I was wearing previously, but I thought they were a good trainer. But as it's kind of gone on, for myself, I don't think it's the trainer for me. I think the drop on the actual Nike Alphaflys is a little bit too much for me, and I think it has changed my mechanics of running, wearing them. So I've made a decision to go back to my Adidas trainers that I have worn for previous marathons, that I know haven't caused me any knee pain, and are a great trainer as well. So I'm hoping that was the case. I'm hoping as I run in the next week before Noosa, I'm hoping that I will not have that knee pain, and with a bit of rest as well leading up to it, wearing my Adidas trainers will go back to the mechanics that I was used to, and hopefully no knee pain. So as Josh mentioned, finding that right trainer for you. The Nike Alphaflys are an amazing trainer, and I'm sure people that are listening that wear them are going to say, like, this trainer is amazing, I love it, and that's awesome. If that's the right trainer for you, fantastic. For me, it wasn't to be. I think for me, I stick to my Adidas trainers. I know that I'm good with them. I know I like them. So yeah, I think it is about finding that right trainer for you. So that's it. As I move on to Noosa now, I've done my training. I've done pretty much everything I can do. I've got one last run, long run-ish for Noosa. Not quite like Josh. I'm not going to go out and run 46 kilometers on my last Sunday run before Noosa. It will be a lot less than that, I can tell you. So I'll ease off as I get to Noosa, and I'll be able to hit my goal. I will record the podcast as I'm in Noosa and release it just before I leave Noosa, because it will be really cool to give you guys an insight of how I done on the day, but also, you know, how I felt during the marathon, and I'll let you know how Clara done on her half marathon. Now, before I go, I will mention about the other couple events that I did mention On my Instagram post during the week, we do have the Great Ocean Road, and as I say, some of the sweaty crew are going down there on the Great Ocean Road, so I wish them all the best on their run. And also we have a friend running the Hackney Half, so we have Haroon over there in London running the Hackney Half, and I wish him all the best as well. So I think I've covered everything on the podcast. I wanted to really talk a little bit about Josh's story, which is a really inspirational story. The way that he come back from a torn hamstring to finish the London Marathon, but also talk a little bit about the inspiration that he has given me on my running journey and just in his life in general, just how much of a fighter he is and how that he has no quit whatsoever. So I'm glad I was able to share a little bit of his story with you guys. As I say, he's a really close friend of mine, and I do spend a lot of time talking to him during the week as well. So it's good to be able to share his story. So as I say, I'm off to Noosa, and I hope you wish me all the best of luck, because I'm really hopeful that I do get to run the marathon in that time. So hopefully I get the Boston qualifying time that I'm comfortable with, but also I get to run that sub 3. I'm super excited. As always, please give me a comment, give me a like, follow me on Instagram. Let me know what you'd like to hear on the podcast as well. Share your stories with me. I'd love to share some more stories on the podcast. I do know I have a few people, like I mentioned, over in Jordan that I will share their stories, and also some people around the world that I've been lucky enough to meet, and I'd love to share some of their stories. So, as always, I'd like to wish you all the best of running during the week, and I'm off to Noosa. Hopefully the next time we'll talk, I'll be able to tell you that I did run that sub 3. If not, I'll definitely be able to tell you I had fun having the attempt to run the sub 3. So until next time, as always, happy running.